Hello. Yay. I see that talking is working here at the mic. Hi, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I'm so glad people have brought their lunch. We're making this more of a family-style approach. Today is March 16th. I'm at Queens Conference Center in the auditorium. I see about 20 wonderful faces here. And last I looked, I saw 109 are online, but I know many come on. And so 166 are online, and there's some questions. I will be back at the computer in a little bit for your questions, and I will be sending you links for the handout and the different things that you need. But we'd like to get the training started. The title today is Recovery Approaches and Improving Attitude for Successful Living. And now I have to get the slides to move with the little zapper here. There we go. We are a member of the Western Region Public Health Training Center, so they help fund this. So it's free of charge to you, and they pay for 5 different groups of continuing ed. We're in a partnership with the Region 9, so we partner with California, the Pacific Islands, Nevada, and Arizona. And our sponsors today are the Public Health Training Hui, which I'm part of in the chair right now, and I'm at the University of Hawaii Manoa, the Office of Public Health Studies, and then we become part of the Western Region. And the Western Region, there are 10 of them, become part of the Public Health Learning Network. And then, of course, we must thank our wonderful host, Queens Medical Center, for the free use as a community partner of this auditorium. Yay, Queens. I'm one of the organizers. Many of you already know Camille Cristobal. She's a social worker. I have the nursing and the public health, and Christopher Lee is no longer in the state, but he works remotely and he does the CHES for us. And these are the 5 continuing ed credits that we offer. And I have to just take a few minutes in these intro slides so that everyone that's seeking them understands that there's different protocols for them. So social worker, you just need the red number that's up there. Substance abuse counselors, CSAC, you just need, it's already been denoted, you just put it on your list. The CHES, you're gonna have to fill out two feedback things. The registered dietitians, you need these red codes, and the nurses I'm going to show you in the next slides. So we work very hard. There are many linking professional competencies. These are the 3 main ones for this training: strategies, problem solving, and program management. And then the College of Nursing is the one that gives us CNEs, continuing nursing education credits, and they like to have the learning objectives for the training on their slide, and here they are. So today I'm going to bring up Kathleen Marin to tell us about recovery approaches. So she's going to review these different approaches and talk about the factors that are involved in emotional well-being and attitudes and some of her success stories. She has no financial disclosures or commercial disclosures. This is the link for nursing that you have to use to get the continuing ed for nursing. And I will be sending that in the chat box. So this slide, most of you should have received this. Camille emails them out to everybody. But just to let you know, we don't have some magic wand. If you call in, we don't know your phone number. You will have to email me or Camille and tell us you were on the phone and what your phone number is. We do keep track of who called in, the phone numbers, but to get credit, you would have to let us know. And you will be receiving an email from Camille. She's working remotely right after this, and we ask that you do an evaluation. If you don't do an evaluation, we don't send you a certificate. It's the one thing, it's free, but it's the one thing you can do for us. For CNEs, here is the full website, and this is what their link looks like. And I had several nurses, you'll have to go over here and click this link on the right sidebar. For CHES, you have to use this link right here at the bottom and do that survey. And in that survey, you give us your CHES number. We have to report your CHES number. So it's a lot of tracking for us, but we're very happy to do it. And when you click on that link, this is what it looks like. And if you are new to Zoom, this is the website. If you somehow can't get in, just click the link again and register again and get in. But the good news at the bottom is that I did remember to click it. We are recording it, and it will be posted on my YouTube at the bottom. So you can always have this. And then there are handouts here in the Queens Conference Center. Today, the green one is the speaker for next week. And the yellow one is our year of trainings are now out. And the blue one is very important, but for those online, you'll get the email. This is the evaluation. Would you please fill it out? And if you fill it out, you can actually get a hard copy of the certificate of completion when the training is over. And now to the good stuff, the trainer and the training. So I feel very fortunate today to have Kathleen Rode-Marion here. She comes from Hawaii Adult Mental Health Division at the Department of Health, and she is the Director of Case Management and Recovery Support Service. She's worked many years in mental health services, over 35, and she moved to Hawaii about 14 years ago from New York City. I think she's going to tell you a little more about it. She got her bachelor's in psychology and her master's in social work. So we have a social work among us, and she is also a CSAC. And she was the recipient of the Mental Health Outstanding Government Leader Award and the Department of Health Sustained Superior Performance Award. So we have a wonderful person here today, and I'm going to ask her to come up and start her presentation for us. I have her slides here, as you can see. And thank you. Please welcome her.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you so much. Thank you to each of you for coming here today. And a special shout out to the Neighbor Island folks. I'm so glad that you're here and that you would spend your lunch hour here. I know you could be doing a whole lot of other things, so it's really nice to be together. So this is what I have in mind for our time together. I hope this looks good to you. I thought that I would go through some background basically about who I am and some lessons that I've learned that I would share. And then move into 5 stages of recovery, and then the 4 dimensions that support recovery, and this is mainly from SAMHSA, as well as the 10 principles of recovery, and then moving into recovery approach versus kind of a medical approach that people are probably very familiar with and work in, relapse prevention and the cognitive theory, and then self-management, and motivation, kind of moving into what really motivates people to take care of themselves, and then utilizing personal experiences. So I'm going to weave in kind of my own journey of recovery as well, and then motivating others. And I'll try to kind of tie it all together by giving a conceptual framework of a recovery-oriented system of care. And I'm hoping to definitely leave some time at the end for some kind of dialogue with you and some just questions and answers so that we can have some time at the end. I hope this is what you had in mind and what you came for. If it's not, it might not be the right time. But I hope this looks appealing to you. And again, I'm really glad that you're here. It's great to see folks. So this has to do with my background. Again, I moved to Hawaii about 14 years ago because Hawaii was looking at some newer models of psychiatric rehabilitation and was converting some models into the Clubhouse model. I was working as the International Training Director at Fountain House, which is the largest psychiatric rehabilitation program for people with serious mental illnesses in New York City. But also the largest housing program. So housing, meaning things like on one end, safe haven sorts of housing all the way to independent apartments for people. My inspiration, I suppose, to even be in the field is really rooted in my own experience with bipolar illness. Started that experience probably very early in childhood, but it was kind of came to a head at 17 in high school. The belief, though, is really in recovery philosophy, not that I will be fully, or that the people I work with will be fully recovered, but that it's a recovery journey. So I'm going to share some experience as a consumer, but then also a family member. I have 3 siblings. I have currently 2 that are living. One I lost to suicide, so I'll go into that a bit. And so both siblings are on medication. My parents also struggle. So often you'll find that people are coming from a family or there's some kind of genetic connection or some kind of a family system issue as well. So I've been involved in the family movement since the 80s as well, have a strong commitment to the family member movement as well as the consumer movement. And then I realized that probably I need to get some education formally, so have become a licensed social worker. Recently finally got my CSAC because I've been on this kick about how we really have to acknowledge the fact that so many people with mental illness also have a substance use disorder. And so I realized I should probably get my certificate of substance abuse counseling. So I have gotten that just to kind of add to my educational experience. And then of course my day job is as an administrator. So those are different hats that I wear, different perspectives that I will be coming from today in this presentation. And then just kind of socially, or I suppose the other side of my life is that when I first moved here, I got involved and introduced to Rotary because they were doing a lot of things with some of the mental health programs I was working with, and became active. And I learned too that really, other than my state position, I might be able to do some things in a service organization that perhaps I might not be able to get done in my job. So I've become very involved with that. I also met my husband. I thought that might be a good way to meet a husband. You know, I would know that they would have a job and that they would care about the community. And so I did luck out that way. I did meet my husband. And so the Rotary's been a great gift. And then of course, as I mentioned, being involved with the family member movement. And then just on a personal note, I love being a grandma. So that keeps me balanced, as young people will. I, like you, probably have always had kind of a desire to help people. You know, just as a youngster, kind of just enjoyed that. Kind of looked out for the kids that maybe didn't do so well, identified with them, just wanted to purely help other people. The problem was when I got sick, which was like an event, even though some things had built up to that, I was very, very embarrassed and full of shame, and also pretty much in denial that I couldn't be that crazy, wouldn't be able to be that sick, and felt very guilty that there was so much attention that suddenly was on me when there were other family members. You know, how could I get that much attention? And then ultimately, you know, lots of despair and depression. So some coping mechanisms were lying. You know, I had to lie. Well, why were you not there? Well, just would invent a lie. That just rolled off my tongue. Well, why did you skip school? Oh, this came up. Remember not being able to be in college and had to drop out. And then I just said, well, this was really effective with male professors. Oh, female problems. That's very effective because they just be quiet. You know, they don't want to hear anymore. That was a lie. I was seen as treatment resistant, which, you know, I would put the pills under my tongue or cheek, just cheek my pills. I would escape. run away, you know, all these behaviors that were just seen as, people would just slap that title, treatment resistant, treatment resistant. So that was kind of the first initial exposure to the mental health system for me, was just really seen as not complying. After a while, I though could see that there were some mentors and some leaders that maybe I could learn from, and that kind of took me under their wing. So I was very fortunate really in my journey, because people saw something in me, even though there was this dark side of doctors saying, you'll be on Social Security for the rest of your life, kind of a long time. There were still some people that saw something, and I kind of hung on to that. I did manage to go to school, even though I was dropping in and out, and I went to Western Washington University, and my first experience of kind of coming out, disclosing that I had a diagnosis, fortunately, it went really well. I actually wrote this story, didn't know what my writing skills would be like, but I wrote a story about a pretty gory, I don't know that I'd do that today, by the way. This was many years ago, but I wrote a story about a seclusion and restraint procedure. And I'll spare you that right now, you're eating. And the professor wrote me back, A+, and may I share this with my graduate students. Well, I didn't really even know what graduate, school was, or what he was talking about. And I realized he thought I had a story that I would actually teach other people. He thought I had something important to say. And so I thought, maybe I actually, who feel so stupid, ugly, crazy, actually could share something that might help other people. That was a really fortunate experience by this professor, Dr. Hayden, years ago. So I felt kind of like that was reinforced. And then that helped me get involved in the self-help movement in Washington State. So then suddenly I'm on a board, I'm a chair, I'm sitting next to the commissioner of mental health. I'm like, whoa, this is kind of weird where I'm nothing, and then I got a little stardom here. So that was kind of strange, but I realized that maybe I do have something to share. I then did get to I applied for a job to work at this place. It would be modeling a self-help program, but they wanted me to learn about Fountain House, which they were going to modify a bit, and they wanted me to learn. And it was a mutual love affair, I say, because it was just kind of finding home. I couldn't tell who the staff or members were. I was like, whoa, that's kind of a trip. Everybody's blended and looking like they're a team. This is like heaven. Can't believe it. And then that just launched kind of a career in this particular model. When I eventually, fast forward, came out to Hawaii, I had a chance to meet a couple of folks from UH, and you probably know them, Dr. Paula Morelli and Melina Kalukakui, and they said, we love that you're going to be here. We think it's great that you're here and you're going to impact Hawaii. However, you need to get your master's degree. We want you to get it here at UH because it's culturally based. I said, okay, sure. Because, by the way, I didn't have my master's degree. Fountain House had said, you know what, the fact that you've been locked up, we think that's a bonus. Oh, and that you've been involuntarily committed, that's like really great. That's some great experience. I know that's a little strange, but they really saw that as fantastic experience. They said, we can't get that in a textbook. And we have all these social workers that are very well educated and PhDs, but you bring to our staff a particular kind of expertise. We really, we want you on staff. So coming here without a master's, that's what the lady said. I said, okay, I'll get that. And I did indeed have a wonderful experience at UH School of Social Work. So this is how I have kind of gotten these are some of the highlights of probably my passion about advocating. And some of those also include, journeys of down at the Capitol and marching and anti-psychiatry and anti-this and that. And Except, interestingly enough, some of those things really saved my life, like involuntary commitment, etc. Some lessons. I call it my first Thanksgiving at Fountain House, but actually that's just a symbol event. That's just an event. But I want to walk through why would something like that be so significant to a rehabilitation and recovery attitude, to kind of an approach to how we work. And that has to do with a clean house is a dignified and hopeful house. And that's where I started learning, and it was affirming for me, because in my services, I remember just thinking, how am I supposed to get well if this place is filthy, if it's not cared for, if it's always such a dumpy place? And that was part of what was appealing to this place I was getting trained in, is the attention and the care to details. And I remember thinking, this is a place of wellness. And so I carry that with me today, about what does a place look like and how does it feel? And to me, if it's dignified and hopeful, that's a recovery attitude. There will be no lines of people waiting for food. You know, I still can't get myself to stand in line for food. Why? Because in involuntary treatment, you know, I had a tray and I had people slopping my food. I still can't. It has to be a certain kind of buffet if I can eat there. You know, it's just, there's something about standing in line. So, of course, we made it a very special experience, waiters and waitresses. And also that gives people a meaningful role. Nothing about institutional living was very important to us. And I think that says you're important and I'm going to serve you. And so the members and staff always were having a role, and lines were a symbol of something else. Printing out formal invitations and announcements, making people feel specially invited, a special invitation, and then charging a little something. You know, nothing's for free, just something so somebody's really making a commitment. That was a good learning for me. By the way, my first Thanksgiving, I assumed I would be able to go home to Seattle. So I was like, oh, I'm going to take the day off. Oh, no, you'll be working. Oh, no, you don't understand. I said, I want to go back home. Well, actually, everybody works Thanksgiving. Then I realized, oh, wow, this is super, super important, very special. So that was, to me, still today, that's another good learning. The notion that people are wanted, needed, and expected. Well, as a mental patient, I never had that before. Wanted in a program, needed, and expected. Think about it. A lot of places don't really expect or even have expectations of their clientele, right? Because we're just so busy treating them or doing things to them. So, and wanted. Wow, to be wanted. Somebody actually, I walk in and they really want me there. And then think about being needed. Don't we all as human beings want to be needed? So that again is about an attitude difference. Planning committee, of course, a role for everybody. So of course, oh my gosh, making decisions and planning. Those guys can make a Thanksgiving go on for months about the planning, because everybody's got an opinion and it's broken down so everybody has a voice. So that was really exciting. As I mentioned, waiters and waitresses, and because people will be served. Don't forget the lemon in the ice water. Okay, that is literally, but reach beyond that. The point is what? Detail, making it special, going above and beyond, not just doing basic things, but the detail of making it very special. And if you've gone to a nice restaurant lately, they generally do put the lemon in the water. Encouraging everybody to dress up. After all, it's a very special occasion. What do we do when we go somewhere special? We usually dress up a little bit. I thought today was special. I did pick up this kind of a special shirt. I don't wear this all the time because you're special. And I was thinking today's kind of special. So again, it's so neat to watch people that have mental illness that are in the program kind of think, you know, let's go to the thrift shop. Let's have a little outing. Let's go let's talk about it, kind of like you do with your girlfriends when you're going to do something special or get ready. Because sometimes those opportunities have been lost through an illness. The guy's getting ready to figure out if they're going to wear pants. I mean, they wear something, but you know, sometimes we think shorts, right? Yeah, they wouldn't just wear their underpants. And how about entertainers? Oh my gosh, with the violin player. Now here we might have a trio. You get the idea. Who will be the greeters? That's where I learned about pulling rank. There at Fountain House, it is the greeter's the most important job. So it's usually the executive director or the program director. Now here I know that sometimes people want metal detectors and they want security and they want a lot of you know, official presence at the door. Actually, it's really nice to think about, this would be kind of a recovery approach versus security. It'd be, how can we greet at the door? So actually you still can do security while you're saying, aloha, I'm so glad you're here, welcome, right? You can still take in, does this make sense that this person's here? I wonder, you know, you can still have that. It actually is a very sophisticated approach of doing security, if you think about it. It's just a very welcoming way of doing security. So the importance of greeting. I already mentioned the concepts of being wanted, needed, and expected. The other thing that I had learned from one of the teachers, kind of one of my mentors, was he said, always have a reason for someone to say yes. It's like, because in other environments, everybody's always saying no, 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 no. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to. And don't ask somebody to do something until you know you're going to get a yes. And I would watch him work. And sure enough, he always had people saying yes to him, you know, whether it was mopping the floors or being a waitress. And so I got better at that too, where I could kind of read. I didn't want to invite somebody unless I was going to probably get a yes, and that people really wanted to get a thank you as well. Because how many people go around in our services, our hospitals, our day programs, our communities, and really get thanked? You can go a whole day without somebody saying thank you. But it actually really does matter, and it means a lot to get thanked, to do something worth a thanks. So in kind of a recovery approach and an attitude, we try to find those yeses and thank yous. And then of course, having a meaningful place to come to, meaningful work, and meaningful relationships, and always being able to come back. That's really important. So we have had the Appalachian Consulting Group come out to Hawaii to help us with some of our peer programming. Peers meaning people with mental illness, helping other people with mental illness. You could use peers for people with substance use disorders or people that are homeless, anybody with a lived experience helping the other same population of people. And this consulting group has kind of come up with 5 stages when you get that impact of a diagnosis or really get diagnosed. In this case, we'll talk about a mental illness. So stage 1 is kind of boom, that impact of the illness. So let's say that first diagnosis comes on, and really the impact is shock. You know, people then, and this was for me, and this was probably for you if you have been diagnosed. And you could say, well, maybe I haven't been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I remember getting diagnosed with cancer, or I remember getting diagnosed with something really severe. So it is that, and it's also kind of similar to the stages of change. This all this stuff that we're going to go through in this short time together, you will see it kind of overlaps and it intertwines. But basically, it's that overwhelmed feeling of, oh my God, it's like glass shattering, and it's, I guess I'm a mental patient. I mean, wow, I can't believe that this is happening. And now this is my identity. This terminology is on me. It's all over. And so really the role of the service or the provider is to try to decrease that emotional distress, to try to communicate that, whoa, you know, this isn't all you, and you're not your diagnosis. Then stage 2 often is that we think that our life is limited. It's limited because I suddenly am my illness. I am bipolar. I'm not Kathleen anymore. I am just a big bipolar. Or I am a schizophrenic. I am depression. The whole me is just depression. And so we almost give in to this disabling power and really can't see any possibility for anything else. It is just, this is all consuming. And so the role of the service is to try to explain that and work out that there is some hope, just because there's been this label and this crash, that you can rebuild a positive self-image. And the third stage is really change is possible. So there might just be a little flame, it might be super tiny and it might flicker, but there is really some hope. And so the person starts questioning, you know, maybe I'm not disabled all the time. I mean, like, maybe my arm is not disabled. Maybe my foot is not disabled. Maybe I am not completely bipolar all the time, and the whole body isn't bipolar. And I might even take some risks. And then again, the role of services becomes to try to impact that hope and reinforce that hope. And then people start seeing hope and courage and challenging that illness, really wanting to see some change and starting to look around for resources, starting to look at some supports, maybe some natural supports, some other supports. And the danger is that they might get frustrated. It doesn't work out the first time. People might give up. But then we as providers have to, you know, reinforce the strengths that we see and really try to help people with some skills, not necessarily new skills, probably helping people restore the skills that they lost through the illness. And then stage 5 is the actions for change. So moving beyond the illness, also helping people take responsibility for their own actions. And then of course, to equip them with the necessary skills. So I can see ahead, I can take some responsibility, and I can actually set some goals. This is another way to kind of put it in context, that there are 4 dimensions that support recovery. So this comes from, in 2010, basically, a lot of people with mental illness, consumers for lack of a better word. I know that's kind of a weird word because it's like, are we going shopping? Are we going to consume some things? But that was kind of an agreed upon word a while back. That, and the idea would be, by the way, that we would be able to have some choice over some things. We would be able to change doctors and change services because we are consumers. And just for simplicity, I'm using that word more than other words. But anyways, that consumers got together and said, you know, these 4 dimensions kind of round out what I see as recovery. They support recovery. But you don't have to be a mental patient to agree with these 4. I mean, you probably are going, yeah, those 4 kind of make sense to me in my life. So health, basically overcoming and managing our own disease or symptoms, you know, making informed choices that support physical and emotional well-being. Health is key. Now, health used to be that integrated care really meant, or integrated service, that we were talking about substance abuse and mental health being integrated, and we would treat both at the same time, right? It's not that you have to treat your substance abuse issue and then you get mental health, or vice versa. Now integrated care, when we're talking about integrated care, it's generally, we're talking about physical health and mental health. So it's just nice to see health as a super big priority right there, health. And home. Oh my gosh, especially in Hawaii right now, you can't, watch the news without homelessness being talked about. And many, many people and partners are trying to come together and figure out some better solutions for hopefully, what should I say, independent housing or more permanent housing. There's so many different ideas about what the solutions are, but basically the bottom line is a stable and safe place to live, right? I mean, we might not always agree about how to get there, but that would be what we're all striving for. Meaningful daily activities. We are now really trying to look at, especially for example, case management. So not just helping people live successfully in the community, but what are they doing? What are we helping people link up to in the community so that we have some quality going on, that people need meaning? And my meaningful activity is going to be probably different than yours, so it should be really individualized, right? So purpose, and then of course community, relationships, and social networks. So that's hopefully a helpful, and this again is available through SAMHSA. The framework of recovery. So I've tried to kind of go through the process, which is the 5 stages, and then kind of give you the domains, which really are those 4 dimensions. And I'm going to move through the tools and supports, which are the 10 guiding principles. And then I'm going to end up with a conceptual framework, which really goes into the systems, kind of a system of improvement, which is near the end, which really kind of pulls it all together. But it is kind of it's a big framework that's a little complicated to look at, but it shows you how things have to kind of fit together. And that when things aren't working together, how things can kind of fall apart. So these are the 10 guiding principles of recovery, kind of a pretty wheel, and shows that all of those things matter if we are talking about a recovery attitude and recovery philosophy in our work. Particularly in this case, I'm talking about people with mental illness. So recovery emerges from hope. If you've ever felt hopeless, you would know that as you or people that you work with started feeling better, it was probably because they had a sense of hope, right? There was something that said, I think I can get out of this. I think that there's a chance that I can get better. So hope really becomes the catalyst of the recovery process. Recovery is person-driven. Now, in a recovery, or even let's say in a treatment program, sometimes what can happen is that the person themselves can feel like the doctor's driving it, the case manager's driving it, the forensic coordinator's driving it, how many other people might there be? Parents are driving it. There could be a number of people that people feel like are driving it. So unless the person feels like they're driving it, and of course there might be all these people thinking, well, they're not capable of driving it. But it's pretty important that the person feels like they are driving it. Because if that person doesn't buy in to getting better or behaving differently, probably not much is going to change. So self-determination and self-direction are really key to this recovery process. And the person defining their own goals. And they might not be goals that we think are that achievable. They might not even be goals that are that realistic, but somebody has to have the chance to at least express that. Recovery occurs via many pathways. So if recovery is kind of like a road, you know, there might be a yield sign, stop sign, one way, two way, construction zone. That's how I kind of see life. Then no two paths are the same, which means treatment and recovery is probably not going to be the same. And non-linear, because it kind of goes up and down, right? Up and down and all around. So our responses can't be cookie cutter. So it really makes sense that whether it's an episode of mental illness or it's a relapse on drugs or alcohol, you know, it's got to be individual. I also want to say that relapse is a part of recovery. It just is. So unfortunately, sometimes when people get sick, let's say they have another episode of mental illness, or they relapse on drugs and alcohol, sometimes we get really punitive in our system. We kick them out. Boom, out of here. We put them in the hospital. We punish them with different sanctions. But if relapse is a part of the recovery journey, then maybe we want to think about how to still keep, maybe we have to adapt with how we're going to assist somebody. Kind of a thought, right? I mean, because otherwise people just repeat these patterns. Recovery being holistic, this is a good one. Really like this because, well, it's kind of a neat design. But then it shows that, okay, if I start with myself, then it kind of goes around, and there's all these, whether it's spokes or spots or kind of together, but everything is there that treatment or my recovery, I can't just treat one thing. You know, I can't just go on one there. It would be like spray and wash, you know, just, you know, like zipping on one and kind of spot treating. You can't spot treat. It's kind of got to be connected and looking at the whole picture because there's a whole body there, right? So, and everything's interconnected. So recovery is holistic, which is another reason why the supports have to be integrated and coordinated. Recovery is peer support. So peers really like to find other people that have similar ideas, just like we all do. We all like to kind of hang out with people that have similar experiences because we have a sense of belonging. We have something in common. Right now, peers are really helpful with homelessness too, by the way. If you've ever gone out on an outreach visit and you've watched, you can see this in the point in time counting. When you see somebody that's been homeless, talk to and interview somebody that is homeless. Wow, they're good. They're really good. Versus, you know, I don't want to say do-gooder, but, you know, just somebody says, I want to help, I want to do something nice, and then, you know, they're doing an interview. They're good too, they can be trained, but I mean, you just take these two people and wow, you know, somebody with lived experience really can be more efficient and more effective, and other volunteers are great too, thank you, but it's just that lived experience is very powerful. So peer support, just plain and simple, it's meaningful. Of course, I first learned that by just being in the psychiatric unit. I just was like, wow. I spent a lot of time, by the way, watching the professionals. You know, I would study them. I'd study what I thought was really good behavior. And then I'd study what I thought was rotten behavior. Took notes. I'm sure that went over really well, you know. And sometimes I gave feedback that did not go over very well. And then I realized, okay, they're not really around us very much. And you know who really has the power is definitely it's the personal care assistants. It's the whatever you call them, PMAs, or the day-to-day workers. It's not really necessarily, the higher you go, the less you're around the patients. So it's the people that really, and then in our case too, I remember the people that cleaned the units, they would come up from the jail and all kinds of dirty things would happen. Like if you wanted another cigarette, you know, anyways, that's a whole nother workshop. But anyways, so I would, you know, take notes and all that. But I remember the peers, we would kind of gang up and we would decide, you know, we thought we ran the place too. I might have been a little grandiose, but then they said I was the president too of the unit. And I thought, if I'm the president of the unit, then I'm going to fire you. And that didn't work either. So I would get confused by some of the way things worked. And then one time I protested, I didn't take a shower for 37 days because I learned that I was supposed to gain points and buy the nice soap in the country store. And that made me so angry. So I still have this thing about soap. I love like pretty soaps. So whenever I go somewhere, I get a nice soap because I couldn't believe I'd have to spend my points in like buying a soap. I thought that was supposed to be something I could have. But anyways, you see how some of this stuff is crazy. So yeah, just a little story there for you. So I did make a lot of observations. So recovery is also about relationships. I'm sure you're getting this point, I hope, that it's about relationships. I think that's how people get better, is really through relationships. And I'm sure that you know this through working with people. People, their antennas are out there, right? No matter, even if somebody's completely psychotic, there's kind of this thread of sanity that we all can tap into. And really, people know about relationships. Culture, I like this one because coming from New York City, I thought, oh, I'm all that. I'm so international. You know, I live in this neighborhood where there's these communities and I live in that and I work with so many different kinds of people, but coming to Hawaii, that didn't mean anything. Hawaii is a special place. Hawaii is culturally a very unique place. And so understanding the culture of who we're working with is really important. And then also respecting the host culture. And so making sure our services are culturally based and that people are influenced by that. And so whether it's about food or it's about clothing or dance or how people relate to each other, there's so much there. So I've done what I can, and I encourage other people to always be learning about these things, practices, and the nuances and how it might relate to somebody getting better and their own perceptions of getting better. Trauma is also a part of the recovery process because I just kind of assume somebody, if they're in services, they've already been a part of traumatic experiences. I think getting services is traumatizing. If you think about it, just sometimes admitting I have a problem and then seeking services. So sometimes in some of the situations, and if you really look at your own agency, is the waiting room traumatizing? Is the reception desk traumatizing? Is the first encounter traumatizing? Is the way people talk and act? Now, if you're sitting there and you're going, no way, we have the most welcoming place, then great. So maybe it's a really uplifting and hope-inspiring and wonderful experience. So people are actually getting healed as they walk in. That's great. Although it could have been just to the traffic. People aren't even used to traffic, and then getting to your place is kind of like, by the time they sit down, they're needing to deep breathe. But you get the idea. It's just kind of being a part of our system can be traumatizing. So this is from, we had a Dr. Fallett here in Hawaii provide some consultation on trauma-informed care. And these are some core values that I want to provide for you, which has something to do with safety, making sure people are physically and emotionally safe. Trustworthiness is a core value. Choice, if there's actually some choice offered. Collaboration, it's so important that we're working as partners, not where if I'm the professional, I'm doing something to people, rather I'm working with people. And then of course, empowerment, an overused word and often misunderstood. But if you really get what empowerment is, then that can be a part of healing. And of course, these are essential values. And then almost done here with these. The recovery involves individual, family, and community. So if we constantly kind of see it as individual, family, community, it does actually involve some responsibility. And then also looking at our strength. So it's kind of a three-prong approach, really. And that slide tells you about that. The last one has to do with respect. We all know what it feels like where you kind of are interacting with somebody that you kind of go to yourself, you know, I'm not sure that they respect me. I'm not sure that they just respected what I said, or I'm not sure that this system or service, not sure that this place is really understanding the human experience. And so this has to do with the recovery really has to be based on respect. And sometimes that takes some reflection of, is that there? So again, that's a summary of the 10. And I hope you give that some thought about which principle means the most to you in your life and what do you think is most critical? And also, you know, how do you have the most impact? This is my favorite slide. I'll try to be brief on this, but this really has to do again with looking at the recovery approach versus a medical approach. And it might just seem like words or might seem like how could these things be important, but it has to do with really how we see things, how we feel, and how we speak. And so patient, client, that's more how we see things with people that are patients. And it can take a long time to move from patienthood to personhood as a kind of somebody in recovery that's trying to move from feeling like a patient all the time. And so often people, you'll see more people are being called members. Of course, in Clubhouse, membership is a huge value, and that means a whole different thing. But people in recovery environments are really trying to be seen as more colleagues and partners. In a medical approach, it tends to be where we're teaching ADLs, adult daily living skills. So we're teaching, there's kind of somebody that knows it and somebody that has to receive that knowledge. Whereas really, we're trying to live ADLs. We're wanting to live them out with people. So I've seen this in, for example, I remember sitting through a class about laundry, being taught how to do laundry. And I thought, why don't we just do the laundry? Don't try to teach me how to do the laundry. And I've seen, 20-year-olds try to teach 40-year-olds how to do laundry, and it's humiliating. It's like, wow, that woman's done more laundry than you ever have even seen. And, it just seemed like, I wonder if there's better ways. I know there's better ways, how we do some of these ADL things. Students, a patient doesn't always have to be a student. Have you seen classes where they could teach the class? I have, or they could be co-teachers. This is my favorite, all-time favorite, unrestorable. Now sit with me for a minute. You are sitting. Unrestorable. Who are we to call another human being unrestorable? I hear that word several times a week. I've heard, well, it's a court term, but we have to use it in the hospital. Well, really? I will not call somebody that. I hope you don't either. Can you imagine being called it? Might you become it if you were called it? Regimen. We generally have a plan or a schedule. Kind of nicer. Compliance. Decision-making, self-determination, low expectations. Oh my gosh, sometimes we just think people can't do stuff. I love being able to say, I bet they could do this, let's get them to do that. I know some of you do too. You've seen it. Groups. Sometimes we group people to death. I was not always a good group person. But I like meetings, I like teams, I like being a part of stuff. Coworkers going, yes, she does. She likes to sit. Token economy. I already mentioned my soap issue. You know, it's token economy. Sometimes that's really a great intervention. Other times, cash is king. Real money. Positive reinforcement. Good job. Wow, neat. That's great. Social skills training. You don't always have to get trained on stuff. Just living life is like one big social skills training. Or maybe doing something at night, like when other people do, or maybe holiday discharge. Oh, my first discharge planning meeting, I thought it was something about down south. Nobody mentioned anything. I did not get the connection about getting out of the hospital because I wasn't going to get out for a long time. I had no idea what that was about. Of course, when I moved here, I didn't know what I thought fitness restoration was also about a health and wellness program. Sometimes we just make a lot of assumptions and we wonder why people don't do what we want them to do. Just a thought. Oh, a person being a case. It says this case, that case. I know that it's natural, it's quicker, but I really like, I know there's HIPAA times, but I really like just saying the name. There's a person's name. Kind of makes it a little bit more real. Bed. This is another really good one. So we move people around, just chess pieces. If you think about it though, it's really a home. It's their home. And I mean, could we really do what some of these folks do? They're so resilient, so strong. Whereas actually, I mean, could we put I could not put all my belongings in 2 big bags or 2 big boxes and then move by tonight. If I got kicked out, so for example, I had a glass of wine last night as I was preparing. So glass for me is like 3 because of all the drugs, medication I'm on. And so if I was on conditional release, that would get me back in the hospital because you're not supposed to do that. Just can't have, even if you have control and you don't have a substance use issue, you can't have one. Okay, so then say I have to get kicked out by tonight. So if I got kicked out, then I'd have to put all my stuff in, you know, say 2 bins. I wouldn't be able to do that. So then I go to a new place and I just kind of, I meet my new roommates and my new home, my new house manager's name. I mean, that's chaos. What if I had to do that 2 times in this month? A lot of our people are doing that. They're just kind of moving, rotating around. So it's a bed versus kind of like moving house, moving home, that's rough. Staff often get burnt out. Have you seen some burnt out staff? Man, they are ugly, 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 sad, sick looking. Oh, have to find a way to take better care of some staff. We don't want them looking worse than the people that we are helping. It's like, ooh, mental health days maybe, or better, more pats on the back, maybe do for them what we're supposed to do for the people that are labeled mentally ill. I mean, that's so sad. Now, generally in a recovery-oriented environment, you're getting enough positive, you know, happy things that you see. You actually see people getting better. You actually are positive yourself. You'll see some tired staff. I mean, like, woo, long day, busy day. You know, it's been a lot. So tired staff, but not burnt out. Burnt out is when at the core, you're not sure if you're making a difference. You don't know if people really give it, you know. I'm not sure if you really care that much anymore. I'm not sure if you really want to do this anymore. But recovery oriented, recovery attitude, yeah, you want to do this. You believe that you're making a difference. You believe in hope, and you believe that people can get better. You actually make a difference. See the difference? And then this shh, 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 you know, HIPAA, 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 and just so quiet and so, because it's so stigma, and it's so embarrassing. Sometimes we re-stigmatize. Actually, stigma is out. Discrimination is what it is most of the time. Stigma went out in the 90s. We downright discriminate against people, and we act like it's got to be so secretive. Whereas again, in a recovery-oriented kind of attitude, we tend to, you know, okay, not everybody stands at a podium like this and says, I am mentally ill. Okay, that's a little overboard. But, you know, it probably is okay to share a little bit, to go ahead and be anti-stigma, anti-discrimination, and to share a little more where people are comfortable, and letting them decide if they want to share, letting them decide if they want to disclose, not assuming that they would never want to even explain what's going on. And then lastly, motivation. So often, I like this one because it puts it more on us. So in some environments, people say, and this has been said to me and about me, what's wrong with her? Why won't she do that? Why won't she go to group? And why won't she get up? And why won't she do more of this? Whereas again, in another kind of environment, it's more like, what is it about me? Hear the difference? How can I be more attractive to engage somebody? About me versus what's always wrong with them. How can I be more attractive to work with? Up there. So once I've been normal, there's no being, or once I've been abnormal, there's no being normal. She's angry. So, you know, I can never get super, super mad because somebody might say, ooh, I wonder if Kathleen's gonna get dangerous. Or if I'm super sad, have a really bad thing going on, somebody might think I'm depressed. Wonder if she's taken her medication. If I get super excited, I am capable of getting very excited. Somebody might think I'm getting manic. What about a little frantic? Wonder if she's losing her mind. Mad. Nobody's really seen me that mad. Because somebody might think they have to call the police. She's getting upset. Ooh, wonder if she better go to the hospital. She's very moody. Wonder if she's been drinking. Likes to put a couple back every now and then. She looks tired. I wonder if she's taking those meds. Is this fair? Other people get to be angry, sad, excited, etc., don't they? Don't you? But if you've been diagnosed, look out, because that's usually what might be on people's minds. So we probably want to check our vocabulary. How about patient is decomping? I just love it. You know, I mean, oh my gosh. So, you know, I guess that's somebody's getting sick, somebody's, but it's just thrown out like a patient is decomping. That's his MO. I don't really know what that means. I mean, that's what they generally do. That's what Okay, that's their pattern. So what? Okay, so what? No. He needs more fitness restoration. He needs to get fitter. He needs to be restored more. And so I think we look brighter, more intelligent if we can actually fill in, like use words. Use words. She is a schizophrenic. We still, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure people sit in meetings where you hear this stuff, right? I mean, it's less now. You can still get people to kind of catch themselves. They'll say, she is a person with schizophrenia. You can hear people, they'll catch themselves. It's like, oh, right on. Borderlines are the worst. I mean, so somebody obviously was traumatized by somebody with a personality disorder. And so they're going to wrap that all up and then say that. Yes. So inappropriate behavior. That's a good one too, right? That is inappropriate behavior. So, I mean, you can hear parents say that to their kids. Kind of funny, you know. That is inappropriate behavior. You know, you see the little kid mock them. Okay, it's inappropriate behavior. But, you know, there's probably a way to be helpful and describe what that is so that somebody doesn't feel scolded. So I think it's good to just kind of always check in and see if I'm using some of those or see if I could be more helpful, which is, I think, the point. So behavioral health is community health. So it's a community issue. It's not like we're just this mental health system over here. It is a big community health issue, public health. This is public health here. That's why it impacts all of us, and all of us have a role in helping. So adults actually with mental health issues have a higher rate of unemployment and disability. That affects all of us. Unemployment rates are 3 to 5 times higher for these folks. 44% of children in special ed with emotional disturbances drop out of school. And then substance use reduces the ability to parent and work. And then the stats on incarcerated people. I mean, the point here, I hope, comes home, which is this is a community public issue. Relapse prevention, or episode prevention, however you want to call it, you know, just trying to stay healthy, trying to take care of our well-being. I think we have a lot to learn from our substance use disorder friends, and they've also used a lot of self-help techniques, which are also very helpful. And really these 9 steps, you know, stabilize, assessment, relapse, you know, educating ourselves about how do we get sick, what happens when we get sick or have an episode, learning more about warning signs, which has to do with also then planning and strategizing and crisis planning, having some strategies, recovery planning, all these things I think really helped people get ready for what could happen if I was to get sick again. So I love that because we should be learning from each field. A lot of times we have kind of silos, you know, there's the mental health world, there's the substance use world, there's the public health world, there's all these different kind of fields, when the fact is we really need to be learning and working together. This is really good because it has to do with what motivates us to get better. And sometimes we think we can do that to people. We can motivate them. You'll hear sometimes, how do I motivate my client? Well, actually, wish you were that powerful. But the idea would be to help people motivate themselves and that intrinsic motivation. So the motivational enhancement therapy really has to do with helping people make personal decisions to change and make personal goals. Don't worry, this would take hours. I'm not going to go through this, and I'm not a physician. This is from actually my supervisor, Dr. James Westfall, who is a doctor, and it's like, you know, kind of the Einstein of, you know, psychiatry, can go through all that. I can't, but what I can tell you is people are talking more and more about the brain and what an actual psychotic episode will do to the brain. that really motivates me actually to stay well, because I really have always believed that when I get sick, when I have some kind of a episode, I'll call it for example, a manic episode, and it would require some kind of, major, or my medication, I got toxic on my medication, I really felt like my brain, not only exploded, but I just felt like my brain is impacted. And so he and others have been discussing a lot on the brain does indeed get impacted with every psychotic episode. I think this is really big stuff here. And that maybe if more people understood that every time, whether you're just going off your medicine yourself, or whether something's going wrong with the meds, like getting toxic, that it can be a motivator. It can be something to learn more about, that, wow, I should be possibly motivated by that. So for example, my brain health actually motivates me. I can't afford to lose more brain cells. You know what I'm saying? The toll it takes on loved ones and myself too, right? I mean, having an quote episode, whatever you want to call that, it takes a huge toll. I start thinking about, wow, I guess I would lose my family, my home, my job, I could go on and sit here. And then of course I start looking for my pills, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it can be scary, the threat of losing everyone and everything. Important to take care of negative stuff like reducing caffeine, stopping tobacco use, knowing warning signs, you could read that. Dealing with caffeine, I was thinking about this because there are a lot of, in getting ready for my CSAC, there was more data on caffeine, and you can read this, but the summary here, there are 82 drugs known to interact with caffeine, including clozaril, which is used for schizophrenia. And I was thinking, wow, I don't hear enough about this. There's a lot of stuff on, again, taking care of our bodies, trying to encourage consumers to take care of ourselves. There's a lot of stuff now on tobacco as well. And if we could even just get probably the first one done, the first A, which is asking people about tobacco. So we're starting to do that on assessments, just your basic, when somebody comes in, just asking them. I learned how to smoke in a psychiatric unit. It was, remember that token economy? So if you were a good patient, you could get a cigarette. So that's not easy to, now that doesn't happen today. Today's patients are not getting cigarettes for, good behavior. But this is critical because so many people do smoke that are in our groups that we help. Self-managed care. I think this is one of the keys. If we can get people, if we can help ourselves, learn to help ourselves. Because to self-manage, by the way, means we have to learn how to manage all of our providers. It can get really complicated. You have a case manager, a doctor, all these other providers. It takes a lot to try to take care of oneself. The family, sleep, exercising, the daily activities, job, all of those things. So this right here is like a whole nother day workshop. So I'll just move through this quickly. But that is, I think, the key to people experiencing positive recovery. And then really a recovery attitude would encourage people to work on self-managed care. The other bing, 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 bing is helping a consumer learn about and get better at having a relationship with their doctor and a relationship with medication. This happens to be my pill box right here. And so you can actually see the Kathleen Merriam. So I stacked all those suckers up and took a picture for you. And it's real. This is complicated stuff. So when we get upset with people and say, well, they didn't take their medication. Well, they didn't comply. they missed a dose, you know, and so they're like, as if people are always playing games. This is not easy to master. I'm in my 50s and I still feel like like it's a big ordeal. Every Sunday night, it's a big old thing, you know, laying it all out, counting it out. I went to Maui last week and I missed a couple of doses and, you know, wow, I didn't mean to, but I kind of got a little disoriented. You might think that's too much information. Well, that's what this workshop's about. This is complicated. And so we get kind of concerned about the people that we work with. Medication is huge, but what about deciding to take that? That decision has to be really on that person. And I'm not sure we do enough work with the individual person about, will you take that? Oh, you have concerns it's making you fat, so you're not going to take it. Let's talk about that. Oh, you have that side effect. You can't get an erection. Ah, maybe we should talk about it. Oh, that's why you won't take it. You know, and really be honest with people about the medication, because guess what? If they don't want to take it, they're not going to take it. I think this is a huge piece in our work. And people just kind of cycle around and around without really addressing this. And then you can read people's notes on people. Non-compliant, non-compliant, non-compliant. This can take years to get really clear on. And then you add some physical stuff. So, you know, what if menopause is an issue? What if there's a thyroid issue? What if gout is an issue? What if, and you can bet it probably is, complex medical issues. For years, we didn't even pay attention to that. We've been so busy working on people's heads. What if their gut is an issue? So this is huge. I don't have a lot of time to go into this, but I want to just say SAMHSA says, I love quoting SAMHSA. SAMHSA is such a great resource, but they talk about how most Americans just don't know, and they're just not taught about signs of suicide. And we can learn a lot about this. We don't need to learn about it from a suicide in our own home or in our community or neighborhoods, but we can all learn more about it. And I think it's interesting that we're not taught that we don't understand the relationship. If we don't take care of our communities, it's expensive. We don't know that that childhood trauma, when our children are not treated well, that there's probably going to be a mental illness or a substance use disorder in adulthood. You know, we're not taught that there's a relationship to that. The stats are amazing about suicide, and depending on how you count it or where your source is, but basically, the stat that I last heard was every 17 minutes a person dies by suicide. So even in our time together today, then 3 people would have taken their lives. There's a suicide prevention task force on every island, and so I would encourage you to get involved that way. The major question that is seldom raised is, are you thinking about killing yourself? So that would be the key question. A lot of times people think, well, are you thinking about hurting yourself? And somebody was just looking in the face and saying, no, this is not going to hurt to them. Say, no, no. It's really about being clear. Are you thinking about killing yourself? I actually got a little knot right there. It's a hard one to ask, but I'd be glad you did. The value of peer support. I mentioned that already. Just want to mention again that there's lots of examples of where peers can be super, super helpful and very effective. Internships with homelessness, on case management teams, and I just can't say enough about the value of peer support and peer support specialists and peer coaches. This is another way of kind of looking at how we can impact recovery at every contact point. This is busy, I know, but it's a nice framework of a coordinated network of community-based services. And so I want to leave you with that. Again, what recovery does mean, I hope this all kind of puts it together in these 5 points. And these are some great, I probably refer to these, well, every week I'm doing something with these particular. I would encourage you to put them on your toolbar. And then last, I want to share, this was from being in a waiting room from a long time ago. I was taking somebody to the hospital that needed to go to the hospital, and maybe you've heard this before, but I want to leave you with it because it reminds me that I had a chance to meet the man that ran the hospital, and he said, "Oh, Kathleen, how'd you like the experience at my hospital?" He was kind of, you know, puffed up, and I said, "Well, actually, thank you for asking. It was really unpleasant. There was, I thought there should be a separate place where we would stay for psychiatric care. So, oh, that would be too expensive, that'd be too expensive." And so I went home and I wrote this poem. It's called "What Does It Cost?" What does it cost to smile at me, to hold my hand, to give me information, to explain what you are doing to me, to advocate for my human rights, to recognize me as a fellow human being, to let me go to the bathroom, to let me call my mom, to ask me what I think, to make the waiting room tolerable, to not over-medicate me, to let me eat something, to let me offer suggestions, to listen to me, to think in terms of alternatives to hospitalization, to let me sit with my friend, to touch me in a safe and gentle way, to give words of hope, to let me know what's happening next, to be nice. What does it cost? Thank you very much. Great being with you.
So Kathleen, thank you. Can you stay up there? I have
Of course.
already online a few comments and questions that I'm going to read.
Okay.
And the people in the audience, I'm going to come and let you ask the question, but let me take care of the online. We've had about 240 online. There's some duplicates, but we've had a nice online presence today. And so people, that was just wonderful, Kathleen. You really give us a perspective that we don't get very often. So the first, let me get up to the first comment. Kathleen is amazing. This is one of the best motivational, educational motivation trainings I've been part of. Mahalo to her and you all for hosting her. Aloha, I love the presenter, great insights into our system and how to work with all kinds of people, clients, patients. Here's the first question, Kathleen. What suggestions do you have to increase sensitivity and responsiveness to childhood trauma?
I think recognizing it is the first step, and I would definitely get some help. So if this is somebody that is seeing that there might be signs of trauma, I think it's a good thing that they're recognizing that there could be trauma, and I would definitely get some help. You know, Children's Mental Health Division would know of some resources. I'm assuming they are on the neighbor islands, right? Yeah, so I know there's a lot of nonprofits that address care for children, and I don't think you can get help soon enough or quick enough. I would even if you're just kind of suspicious or you're concerned, just reach out and get some help.
Do we have any questions here on the floor? Yeah, you went over slide 59 pretty quickly. Did you want, every slide you had so many interesting comments. You want to share a little more of this? I know you were worried about time.
I know, I looked at this timer and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be done by 1:15.
Yeah.
So mainly just that the person has control over, that's really, these are good summary kind of bullets that really the person has control over making some decisions, and that some understanding. I think thinking forward, because we can get stuck in the past. So it's so easy to be thinking about what happened to me and what I've gone through. And so when you can start thinking about, do some forward thinking, I think that's important. And then, this whole thing about wellness and taking some steps. When I had those self-managed care outline, I think that for me, it's really breaking down into these sections of, am I doing everything that I can to take care of myself, which is a great thing for everybody to do, really. But then it's kind of magnified if you've got this illness, right? It just feels like it's even more important to pay attention to signs, or to, like, for example, sleep. We know, I'm sure that everybody can identify with sleep. If you don't get enough, it wears on you. I can't play around with that too much. My new Fitbit will actually monitor my sleep, so I'm promoting that right now. I'm telling all my friends, it actually, you can tell how much sleep you get. So I know that I really need 8 hours. So I'm going to do what I can in my little world. So everybody in my little intimate world knows that, I got to get my sleep. So I find that my supporters kind of all know that. And sleep, exercising, just everything about taking care of myself it takes a lot of energy, and I put the energy into that.
And wonderful. And I see the last one ends in hope. And when you were doing the 10 principles, you started with hope.
Yes.
And you said it was a catalyst. And I hadn't thought of it starting as a starting place, but of course you wouldn't really want to change or feel like you could recover if you didn't have some light of day of hope.
Well, probably I think if you don't have hope that you can somehow get better, or that you can somehow get out of it, I don't know that people would make it, right? I mean, and I think everybody can identify with that whatever the situation is, whether they are life problems of, a divorce, or losing a job, or, whatever everybody can identify with. If there's not hope that you'll make it, then we probably don't have a lot of energy to get through that situation.
Yes, but I was fascinated when you were telling how you were observing your peers, and then supposedly the service providers in your situation.
Oh, yes.
And so what triggers hope? What triggers you to the hopeful side? So then you can do all of these steps that you shared in principles. And what triggers? What was a trigger for you to be more hopeful?
Probably my ultimate rock bottom was really being in restraints and hopeless. And I remember thinking, kind of making a promise to my higher power, if I get out of this alive, I mean, I really thought I was going to die there. And I thought, if I get out of this alive, I promise I will devote my life to mental health. And I did live through that. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, now I know what my vocation will be. I'll have to find a job in doing something. And then I really found it in the self-help movement. And then later thought, no, I can actually be a quote professional, and yeah. And I think a lot of people can relate to that rock bottom thing that happens. Of course, your rock bottom can even go deeper, right? And then you go, wow, I didn't know it could go this deep.
My name is Mara.
Hi.
I think the question I wanted to ask, I mean, to me, the recovery model makes so much sense, and especially comparing it to the medical one. What hope is there that the medical community will embrace the recovery approach?
I'm not super optimistic that, that I think there's a lot of people that they just are the way they are, and I don't have a lot of optimism that they will change their thinking, their behavior, or their words. And so, but I do have control over how I think, behave, and speak. And so I just try to kind of do my work the way I want to do it and believe. And it's just natural, a way of thinking. So I'm not out to change anybody else. But I have found that, you know, if I can find some allies, and I try to, I'm a seeker, I'm a talent scout. So I try to find people to hang with that are similar thinkers. And that's who I choose to, you know, be friends with and spend time with and work with. But there's a lot of times I feel like an alien. You know, I just feel like, wow, what planet did I just land on? So whether that's a meeting or whether that's, you know, a place I have to interact with, there's a lot of people out there that just are not thinking and behaving in a way that's comfortable to me. And so, but you know, it's not a popularity contest. And so I feel like, well, I think this is more humane, and I don't need a whole lot of friends in my field. You know, the people that really matter to me, I just keep growing that group, you know, and I'm attracted. It's like a magnet, you know, when I find somebody that smiles and really is kind of on the same wavelength, it's just attractive to me. It's really, and then the people that, as soon as they open their mouth, it's like something negative. I want that energy.
Great response. Part two. Yeah, we're getting close. We're a couple minutes over, and then there's one comment online about clubhouses and using this same philosophy about let you.
So I guess the question is, when involved with the institution and that medical mindset and trying to support a loved one recovering, getting integrated back into the community and trying to have those conversations. I mean, personally right now, we're very stuck because there's such a limitation on the medical side. The integration of the community, there's just nothing. There's like not a logical linear way to help someone ensure that they don't end up back where they were. And the health is declining. So, I mean, I'm finding ways, but it's like, who do you think could provide the resources around these recovery models for people to find it, community members to even find out that there are things like peer support available, like there are there. I'm finding it because I work for an agency and I've learned that. But what about all these families that don't have access to that information? I think I'm trying to figure out who could. I would think every state could provide their members with what's available for mental health services, but we're just hearing that it's not out there in many states. So any ideas of how to kind of reach the people that need the information to give them that support and hope?
I don't know if this totally answers that, but I think there are pockets of recovery attitude, and it's important to find those pockets and nurture that. So like MHA and NAMI are essential to promote these kinds of attitudes. You're so necessary, and states rely on your kind of organization to promote it and to hopefully you get more and more members and stronger, because that's needed. But there are pockets. So for example, I was at Hawaii State Hospital yesterday trying to kind of help a patient with their voice. And I found that I'm in the most restrictive environment possible here. And I've already made it through the gates and already gone through my anxiety about being like where I am. But you know, there were words on behalf of the treatment team that I found so empathetic, and was thinking, wow, if I was here, I'd really want her saying that for me. And I mean, I was touched. The whole scene wasn't exactly what I would, you know, I was like, wow, I'm really aware where I am. But so I'd call that a pocket of hope. You know, that was great. So, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to, wherever we go, we have to just find those glimmers of positive and recovery oriented and empowerment, and storm through. You know, we just plow through, and there's going to be, it's kind of like, you know, you saw Wonder Woman, I'm sure, where you just kind of go, right? So it's like, oh, that's negativity. That's somebody's disempowered right there. And then, you know, you hear something else, and it's just not nice, and it's feels oppressive, you know, but you go through, and you go for the optimism, and you go for people that are being hopeful and helping people get better. That will win.
Let's say thank you to Kathleen. We need to call it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful job. And for anyone online, you had a lot of comments online, and we'll answer the question. Type it in. Thank you, everybody. Please fill out the blue form. That's what we asked for. And certificates, if you want a hard copy, are outside. And as you all know, if you're a regular, Camille will email you a certificate with your own name, as long as you signed in, or signed in online, or signed in here when you came. Thank you. I hope you're here next month on, I think it's April 20th. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.